こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材は、サッカー日本代表に関する動画です。The England Pod のチャンネルから、グループFのプレビューをしている動画です。特に各国の戦力や直近の状態を見ながら、順位予想をしています。オランダは有名選手こそ多いものの、主力の不調や予選での内容から絶対的な強さには疑問があると強調し、日本は6連勝中で、森保監督の下での継続性や組織力、スペインやブラジルを破った実績などからも、高く評価しています。実際にどのように話しているのかチェックしてみましょ
う。Welcome to the England Pod, our World Cup predictions series, and it is a series. This is part 2. We've already predicted groups L through to G. That included England's group. Now we're going to go F back to A. We are all England all the time. We are now all World Cup all the time, and it's only a few days until we are going to be out in the States doing daily shows about England, yes, but also about the tournament as a whole and about our escapades out in New York, Kansas City, Dallas, Boston, New Jersey. So please do make sure you're following along for the journey.
The upside down preview.
Yeah, it's an upside down, reverse alphabetical preview. George is all over Group F.
Yeah, funny group this. We've got the Netherlands. We've got Sweden, we've got Japan, and we've got Tunisia.
Great group.
Yeah.
Great group.
Interesting. Very, on paper it might look. Let's start with the Netherlands, because they'll be favourites to win this group. Ronald Koeman is their manager. As ever, his reputation as a manager remains pretty kind of middling, like some good moments, but not particularly trustworthy necessarily, and not necessarily got the same adulation from the Dutch fans as he had as a player.
I was at one of his last games for Everton.
Yeah.
I think it was against Lyon in the Europa League, and it was just one of the worst performances. And he was getting booed, and I think Davy Klaassen was playing midfield and was just had an absolute nightmare.
Yeah. Well,
no Davy in this squad.
I mean, he famously led this Netherlands team to the Euros semi-finals in 2024. We were there. They led in that game. Xavi Simons putting Netherlands ahead for England, roared back with a famous victory thanks to Ollie Watkins.
Unlucky to go out against Argentina.
Yeah, exactly.
The World Cup.
And prior to a recent malaise in major tournaments, they were a bit of a powerhouse. So obviously losing in the World Cup final to Spain. But I've got some concerns, if I'm honest, with this squad. There is a reliance on Memphis Depay for goals. Scored a lot of goals in qualifying in what was a pretty easy group. He's now playing for Corinthians in Brazil and not doing particularly well there. And you look at some of the kind of big name players you could normally rely on. Virgil van Dijk coming off a really poor season at Liverpool. His teammate Ryan Gravenberch also, who was so good in the title winning season, not looking great. They've obviously got some good players and big names within their squad.
Your man Donyell Marlon,
but I'm not sure.
Went to Roma in January, he scored basically every game, didn't he? So
yeah.
This could be his. It'd be interesting if he could carry that form in.
But having struggled to break into the Aston Villa side, it feels like a team of names where I'm not necessarily sure the names justify the reputations.
Frankie de Jong, though?
Yeah, he's a very good player. Now, I'm not saying that they're without quality. Their qualifying campaign was easy. The only other kind of good nation in their group was Poland. They played them twice. They drew twice, so failed to beat them on 2 different occasions. The kind of standout bit of form that they've got coming into the World Cup is that they beat Norway 2-1 at home. But this was a Norway that didn't have any of their star players. Haaland didn't play, Ødegaard didn't play, Nusa didn't play. So I'm pretty happy just to almost ignore that. And it was a tight margin of victory anyway at home.
Sounds like the Dutch are vulnerable to me.
Yeah, I'm not particularly positive. With Japan, however, I am. They've won 6 games in a row coming into the World Cup. Those 6 opponents in kind of order of difficulty to some extent. Probably expected to beat Iceland, Bolivia. Already spoken about Ghana, who I don't think are great. They beat Scotland. They also beat England at Wembley. And they beat Brazil. So they've won 6 games in a row coming into this. And I've spoken about how I like settled teams under a manager who's had a decent kind of tenure in charge of the national team. And that's exactly what Japan are, because they were good in 2022 under Moriyasu, who's their current manager. He was formerly the under-23 boss, so he basically ushered through this generation. You're looking very confused.
Did they beat Spain 2022?
They beat Spain 2-1 in 2022. Alvaro Morata put Spain ahead before Ritsu Doan and Al Tanaka scored a quick-fire double straight after half-time in a game where they had 18% possession, just the 962 passes for Spain in that game. And yeah, so there's a solidity, there is continuity, there is form, there's a lot to like. They've got some good attacking players in Ueda and Kubo. Ueda, who leads the line, Kubo, who's a really good attacking winger from Sociedad.
Sadly, no Mitoma.
Well, no Mitoma, no Minamino.
Oh, that's a shame.
So those are two like big players for them who are both out of the squad and missing the World Cup. But it's hard not to be.
They're not a star-based outfit.
No, I think they offer like a baseline of quality that's going to make them a tough nut to crack for the Netherlands and the other teams in the group. Sweden didn't win a single qualifying game. And they're in the World Cup.
Come on.
They qualified for the playoffs despite not winning a single qualifying game due to the Nations League. They beat Ukraine with a Victor Gyökeres hat-trick and then had that topsy-turvy game where they beat Poland 3-2. Now, there's something to point out here. Graham Potter, there was a change of manager. Graham Potter came in and he wasn't in charge for the poor qualifying campaign and was in charge for the playoffs. So there is a line drawn there. A lot is being made of that change, though, and I do wonder if it's a bit noisy to be like, oh well, now they got Potter and they're a better team. Like against Poland, they were second best for much of that game and won it 3-2. In Gyökeres, who scored 4 goals in those 2 games, he was still present during the qualifying campaign. They got Alexander Isak, who a year ago would have been one of the biggest names in this World Cup, and now his stock has fallen dramatically. They played Norway in a game I mentioned earlier in the first episodes. In a friendly on Sunday and were completely outclassed and beaten 3-1. So this is still a team to me that have shown over a long period in qualifying that they weren't particularly good. They've brought in a new manager who's overseen an improvement in 2 big games, but Ukraine and Poland, it's not necessarily that much to look at. So I'm not overly convinced by Sweden.
Correct me if I'm wrong, George, but I'm pretty sure Watford legend Ken Semmer is in the Sweden squad.
Wow.
I think he made it.
He is in it.
Yes.
Currently,
Come on, King Ken.
Last seen playing in the Champions League for Paphos.
Yeah.
Up and down that left side.
Yeah.
Just dependable.
Many up it, I think. He's in there. So, we'll see with Sweden. Tunisia, another EFL legend of recent times. Cardiff and Nottingham Forest fans will remember Sabri Lamouchi, who was the new Tunisia manager, after the previous incumbent had not a particularly positive AFCON. He's made quite a big decision in leaving out 2 players with about 200 caps between them in Fajani Sassi and Yassine Mariah. It surprised a lot of people. Big decisions made by Lamouchi. They'll be, as Lamouchi teams are, they will sit very, very deep.
Yeah.
They'll be compact. They will look to attack and transition. The players that I know and have seen a lot of football from are Hannibal Medjbury, Anis Ben Slimani, Jan Valery, like good championship players.
Okay.
It feels like maybe lacking a little bit of quality. They played Austria in a friendly on Monday. Austria were down to 10 men within the first half of that game. Still beat them 1-0, still dominated the ball. It didn't look, from my research, like a game from 10v11. So
just going to go check, see if Hannibal Medjbury picked up a yellow card in that game. Feels like the sort of game where he might have enjoyed one of those. No,
none.
Stayed clean.
Unlucky.
78 minutes. Well done, Hannibal.
So yeah, I've got
Loves a
Tunisia.
card.
I've got Tunisia bottom of the group, Sweden in 3rd, Netherlands in 2nd, and I've got Japan winning the group.
Yes.
Nice.
I mean, based on everything you said about all those teams, I'd have been disappointed if you didn't have Japan top in the group. And it's very tempting, isn't it, lads, to put the favourites to win and the biggest name nations as the top of each group. But across 12 of them,
Not going to happen.
that
every
isn't
time.
going to happen.
Nope. Yeah.
And so across our 12 predictions, we need, if we're staying true to a World Cup, we need to have a couple.
I tell you right now that not all the favourites are going to win their groups.
There you go. So Japan winning Group F. You love to see it.
次は解説です。今回は難しいボキャブラリーも結構ありましたので、本日の解説をチェックしてみましょう。
Yes, but also about the tournament as a whole and about our escapades.
エスケーペでは、冒険騒ぎや珍道中を意味する単語です。単なるアドベンチャーよりも少し羽目を外したり、予定外の出来事が起きたりするニュアンスがあります。もともとはフランス語の馬が急に走り出すことを意味する単語から来ており、そこから予測できない行動や無鉄砲な冒険を表す言葉になりました。 旅行番組やスポーツ系ポッドキャストでも時々使われます。特に若い頃の武勇伝や失敗談を語るときによく登場する表現で、アドベンチャーよりも少しユーモラスな響きがあります。ネイティブらしい表現として覚えておくと便利です。
And yes, but also about the tournament as a whole and about our escapades. And yes, but also about the tournament as a whole and about our escapades.
Not necessarily got the same adulation from the Dutch fans.
アデュレーションは熱烈な称賛や崇拝に近い人気を意味する上級語彙です。普通のプレイズよりもかなり強い表現で、ファンがスター選手を大きく持ち上げるときなどに使われます。今回の動画では、ロナルド・クーマンが選手時代ほどオランダのファンから熱狂的に支持されていないという意味で使われています。アデュレーションには少し称賛しすぎというニュアンスが入ることもあります。スポーツ記事や有名人について語る場面で時々見かける表現です。トイックではほぼ出ませんが、英語ニュースやポッドキャストでは知っていると理解が深まる単語です。
Not necessarily got the same adulation from the Dutch fans. Not necessarily got the same adulation from the Dutch fans. And prior to that, prior to a recent malaise in major tournaments.
マライズは不調や停滞感を意味する上級語彙です。もともとは体のだるさや原因のはっきりしない体調不良を表す言葉です。そこからチームや国、経済などがうまくいっていない状態にも使われるようになりました。今回の動画では、オランダ代表が最近の主要大会で以前ほど強さを見せられていない状態を指しており、単なるバッドフォームよりも、チーム全体に重い空気や停滞感があるニュアンスです。スポーツ記事や政治、経済ニュースでもよく見かける表現で、日常会話よりも少し固めの評論的な英語で使われます。トイックではほぼ出ませんが、英語ニュースを読む人には覚えておきたい単語です。
And, prior to that, prior to a recent malaise in major tournaments. And, prior to that, prior to a recent malaise in major tournaments. So he basically ushered through this generation.
アシャラは案内するや導くという意味の動詞です。もともとは劇場や教会などで人を席まで案内する案内係を指していました。そこから現在では人や物事を新しい段階へ導くという意味でも使われます。スポーツでは若手選手をトップチームへ引き上げるときによく使われます。アシャリナーウェラという表現も非常によく使われ、これは新時代の幕を開けるという意味です。ニュースやスポーツ解説で見かける便利な上級表現で、ガイドやリードよりも少しフォーマルな響きがあります。
So he basically ushered through this generation. So he basically ushered through this generation. So he basically ushered through this generation. He's going to make them a tough nut to crack for the Netherlands.
タフナトクラックは、攻略が難しい相手や解決が難しい問題を意味するイディオムです。直訳すると、割るのが難しい硬いナッツで、そこから簡単には崩せない相手や、簡単には答えが出ない問題を表すようになりました。スポーツでは、守備が固く組織的なチームに対してよく使われます。ハードビートやディフィコットとブレイクダウンに近い表現です。日常会話でもビジネスでも使え、少しこなれたネイティブらしいイディオムです。
It's gonna make them a tough nut to crack for the Netherlands. It's gonna make them a tough nut to crack for the Netherlands. And then had that topsy-turvy game where they beat Poland 3-2.
トプシータービーは、めちゃくちゃな、や展開が2点3点するという意味の表現です。トプシーとタービーは、どちらも古い英語の響きを持つ言葉で、上下がひっくり返った状態を表す表現として定着し、物事が混乱していたり、予測できない展開になったりするときに使われます。サッカーでは、点が入り合う試合や流れが何度も変わる試合にぴったりです。単なるエクサイティングよりも、混乱や波乱のニュアンスが強いです。ニュースやスポーツ記事でも時々見かけ、会話で使えるとかなりネイティブらしく聞こえる表現です。
And then had that topsy-turvy game where they beat Poland 3-2. And then had that topsy-turvy game where they beat Poland 3-2 after the previous incumbent had not a particularly positive AFCON.
インクンベントは、現職の人や現在その役職にいる人を意味する単語です。政治ではザ・インクンベント・プレジデントで、現職の大統領という意味になります。ビジネスやスポーツでも、監督や責任者などに対して使われます。ニュースや政治記事ではかなりよく見かけ、トイックでもビジネス文書や政治的な文脈で出る可能性があります。覚えておくと英語ニュースの理解に役立つ単語です。
after the previous incumbent had not a particularly positive AFCON. After the previous incumbent had not a particularly positive AFCON.
いかがでしたか？日本はよく言われるように直近の戦績とその調子から最高の状態でワールドカップに臨むように見えているでしょう。しかもイングランドとブラジルに勝ち、直近6連勝であり、ネガティブな点が見えないほどでしょう。スター選手がいるかいないかという議論は常にあり、日本にはそのスター選手がワールドクラスの選手がいないことを理由に、それだけで日本に対する期待を下げる人も少なくはないと思いますが、チームとしての質は間違いなく他国に負けないものであり、その安定性と継続性がまさにこの動画でも称賛しているところでした。三笘や南野がいないことは大きな痛手であるものの、それをカバーするチーム力で戦い、ボール保持率 18% というような試合にはならないだろうとも思いますが、互角、あるいはそれ以上にオランダを圧倒し、勝利することが十分にできると思いますので、こういう日本に期待している多くの人が喜ぶような素晴らしい試合をしてほしいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。またすぐにお会いしましょう。